The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon to those of you who may be in Europe or in other areas of the world. And welcome to our webinar on why pharma manufacturers are leveraging their CMMS technology across multiple sites. We're going to give everybody a few more minutes to join us, and then we'll get started in about 2 minutes. But in the meantime, anybody that's here, if you want to post in the chat maybe where you're joining us from and say hello, that would be fantastic. Still see a few people joining in, so we'll wait one more minute and then we'll get going. Okay. We are about to get started then. So again, welcome everybody. This webinar is called Why Pharma Manufacturers Are Leveraging Their CMMS Technology Across Multiple Sites, and we're thrilled to have you join us today. So a little bit about the agenda. We're going to start off with introducing our speakers to you, talking a little bit about the companies that we come from, how they may relate to you. Then we're going to get into 3 questions about kind of a global project, as in what is a global project, why harmonize across your multiple locations, and some tips and tricks on how you can be successful with this as well. At the end, we'll open it up for questions and answers, and just a little bit of housekeeping here. So if you'd like to ask questions, we do ask that you save them towards the end if you possibly can. I'll open it up for questions. And at the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel, you'll find something called questions. You'll be able to type your questions in the chat, and then we will answer those live. So again, we ask that you type those in there when you're ready and you have a question at the end, and we'll get back to you there. So if you need anything immediately, you can also type that in there, but you know, the moderators may not be able to address that until the end. And you can also reach out to us specifically if you have a question that you don't want posted to the entire audience. There's an option to be able to select who you'd like the message to go to. So we'll do our best. This is going to be an enjoyable presentation, and I'm really glad and pleased to have our panelists with us today. So a little bit about Blue Mountain. Blue Mountain is a software company, a CMMS. Often we fall into that category, focused on the life sciences. 100% of our customers are in the life sciences industry, so we're very focused on that area. We have over 35 years of helping those life sciences customers maintain compliance with tracking their assets and equipment. And we do have in-house expertise throughout the implementation process. We provide significant guidance on that through our project management and delivery team, comprehensive software validation that comes with the product out of the box, as well as in-house experienced technical support team. So introducing myself, my name is Ginny Lee, and I'm the Executive Director at Global Services at Blue Mountain. Really looking forward to share this information with you today and hope that it can help you in the future. And I'd like to introduce John Pingley next. John?
Thanks, Jenny. Jonathan Pingley. So I've been with Blue Mountain for my entire career out of college, actually. I think it's around 12 years I've been with the company. So obviously there was a reason I've stayed so long. But I'm here to support from, the application side. I'm an implementation manager, so I started as an analyst and became a manager a few years ago and have been having fun with that. So I will pass it off to Victoria if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Victoria and I work as IT project manager in a company called LK Avelia with headquarters close to Copenhagen, where Carsten and I are joining today. And I have been fortunate to run the CMMS implementing Blue Mountain R4 in ALK for the last 2.5 years.
Yes, hello, and I'm Carsten Bülow. I'm Global Engineering Director, and I need to get things very well working around the world in our sites for engineering. And one of the things that is nice to harmonize is the CMMS. So that's why I've been together with Victoria run the implementation around, and we are not finished yet. And further on, additional on the system owner. So I'm also interested in that it works well. So thank you. And maybe I should continue and tell you just a little facts about our company. It's you can say that it's more than 100 years old now. So it's 101 years old. It's a small company on the world scene. It's only 2,900 employees. We are on almost 50 markets, and we are treating 2.4 million people with allergic rhinitis or people that has allergy. You can see that we have improved a lot by having more and more tablets, and the tablets they are used for, just to give you a picture of what the allergy things are. It's for the house dust mites, for tree pollen, it's for grass, it's for ragweed, and we also have something called Japanese cedar. It's very common in Japan. Our market is solely in Europe. It's 2/3 of the company is in Europe, and then we have 20% in North America and 15% in the rest of the world. As you can see, the development in revenue is increasing, and you can say that we know that are about 500 million allergic people in the world, and only about 5 million are treated. In fact, this can cure the allergy, this medicine we have here. So it's only, in fact, around 1% of all that people that could benefit from being cured, that are being cured. So you can see it's a growing company, and there's a future for helping a lot of patients. And we are doing this in a very, very controlled GMP way, and that's one of the key things about our company compared to many of our competitors. And maybe we should see where we are located.
Yeah, next slide, please, Jenny.
The next slide.
Yes, and if we just look in the global view, so to say, we have several production sites, and the production sites have been the focus for the CMMS implementation that has been the target. We have the main sites, we could say we have 6 production sites. We have 3 sites, main production sites in Postholz, and 3 sites in Europe. So in Europe, in Denmark, we have the headquarters and also the site that is producing both the tablets and also the injections, the SCIT products. And then we have a site in France and a site in Madrid. And we have 3 main sites in the US, and in the US we also have the site Post Falls in Idaho, where the source materials are being produced. And the source materials in allergy production, that's actually growing pollen, cultivating hazardous mites, collecting cat and dog hair, and doing many other very interesting things. And then we have a site close to New York where the US distribution is taking place, and another site in Oklahoma as well. So basically, yeah, North America and Europe, that's where we have the sites.
Thank you. So we're going to kick things off now and just talk a little bit about what does it mean to have a global project? How do you know if you should, or if you maybe already have a global project here? So if you'd like, Victoria and Karsten, maybe just, talk about a little bit about your roles at the locations. I know you introduced yourself, but maybe kind of the roles that you have and how your implementation was structured. So you mentioned the sites and the locations. So where are you at with that? And where do you hope to go?
So I think on the role side, we were together with Karsten as a PMO, starting that, and Karsten from the engineering perspective and more from the business and the process side. And I have been more this traditional project manager role, meaning the plan, the cost, the scope, so all those things, resources. And I am based in global business IT, and that has been a global business IT project and was anchored in global business IT. But of course, without involvement of business, we wouldn't be able to make it a success. The implementation has been so that 2.5 years ago, we started first pilot implementation, and that was in Post Falls, and that was the biggest project. And the project lasted 14 months. And then that was finished, and we talk a little bit in a second why it was the biggest project. And then we went to Madrid, and that was already 6 months. After that, we had France. France was 5.5 months, and now we are in Denmark, actually our biggest site. That's where we're doing the implementation at the moment. So overall, we could say we have six projects, and some of them include 2 sites maybe at the same time. Yes. The implementation, yes, so we're currently now on rollout number 4 out of 6, we could say overall. And yes, and the pilot in US was, since it's a global project, meaning we decided we have stick to the global functionality of Blue Mountain, meaning we did not do any customization to the system, which was important for us because it also streamlines implementation along the way. We agreed to do the global implementation and to roll it out on all the sites affected. So, and the background is that sites had, like I think many other companies, very different backgrounds. Some of them have used Excel, some of them have been using some other systems, and different sites use different systems that have been supported locally and not by global organization. And some of them have been out of support and out of compliance. So there was really a need for a common solution that has been there for quite some time.
Yes, and you can say the idea here in this rollout is that in the pilot we did most of the things. We first, before we started up the project, we did a huge alignment across ALK, and that was one of the key things that we did here. We in fact agreed on how the business process should be and how the user requirements should be. And that was a long discussion, but it was very valuable because then we have seen that it has worked when we did the you can say implementation around.
Yes, and another thing important to mention is also that Of course, when we go to the site, there is the local organization who is on the site, right? And they are going to be responsible for their portion of activities. But there has been roles like global QA, system managers from our side, validation responsible, and those people have been at the core of the project and have moved from one rollout to another rollout. So they have also built up a lot of knowledge and understanding about, you know, how exactly we do things in the project, and, you know, understanding about the system. So it also helped us a lot during the way. Of course, at first, everyone has a very steep learning curve when we did the pilot. But then with time, I think people, of course, become more and more comfortable with, as you know, we move to the next rollout.
So the big benefit here was that the people was following the rollout, the central people, but also that we did the most of the things in the start. I think we had almost 200 validation documents on the first site, and we are down to have around 30 now on the next site. So a lot of documents can be reused, and a lot of documents can just copy and paste and correct a little, and very few documents, in fact, they need to do by themselves. So yes, that was something about that.
Yes,
I think.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a lot of planning, meticulous planning and thought going into your rollout from the beginning. So maybe can you talk a little bit about how you put your plan together for the whole thing, what you looked at step by step, or did you look at the whole plan from the beginning that you're sticking to?
I think as a starting point, we just used our normal IT model that we use on IT projects, right, including the validation of the system, the validation of the load. So that was the kind of the skeleton. Of course, we had to adjust that. First of all, this is a cloud solution. We are also on a journey to getting more and more cloud solutions, but we were among the first cloud solutions implemented in ALK. So how we put the plan together, basically, yes, we created based on what the approach we use in ALK. We have built our validation approach, which is just adjusting to, you know, the way things are in Blue Mountain, and that we, I think, one of few customers who actually did some of system validation, even though we have implemented standard. We know that many customers, they decided not to test, but that was just based on our risk assessment. We decided that just to have absolutely peace of mind, we want to do minimal system IQ, OQ, PQ. So that was the foundation, and we also did some validation of the loads. We had 2 loads, one to validation and actually to development, validation and production environments, and we validated the one to validation and also to production. So that was the foundation. But of course, in the pilot, I think the biggest focus was on getting the global deliverables done. And I think, as Carsten mentioned, the first thing to conquer was we need to align on global URS to be used. And Blue Mountain has a really nice list of all the URS that, you know, all the requirements the system covers. So we've been going through that, decided what is relevant for us to use. Is there anything else out of this list that is not covered? And well, thankfully, we didn't have anything that was out of this list. And we also were, you know, if needed, fighting a little bit not to get some, you know, not to deviate from the standard solution. So we included that as a part of project, and then of course also to align on the global process.
Yeah, just to add that we can in fact thank Blue Mountain for helping on this in this phase, because in fact Blue Mountain reviewed our user requirements, and there was a few things that wasn't possible because it was outside the standard system. Then we just planned to do the thing as it was possible to do.
So I think that was one thing, all those global deliverables that we have added, and we have also done global training. We have done corporate work instruction, one document for that. So a lot of that went into the plan. And so I think we first made a very, you could say, an IT project plan with all the global things added on top of that. And then, of course, when we started, we understood the complexity of the data preparation and understanding all the load files. And then we have understood that this is really, really an important area in the project. So in pilot, we spend a lot of time trying to understand the files and how to populate them. And also added, in our case, just did some not optimizations, but enhancements that we added to the file while we are populating, just to make it easier for users to fill it out. So that was another thing that, of course, we understood is going to be the biggest part actually in the project, is to, and also to collect the data.
You can say that we have planned the project well, but we also had a lot of surprises during the first rollout, because the key thing here in all this rollout and for this system is the data preparation and the data migration. That's absolutely the key thing here. And it was not easy to do that work in the start. It's a very complex Excel file you need to fill out with all your data. And I think we struggled around 2 months with that. It was new for everyone, and we had a good help from system administrators. They found out to do a lot of auto generation in the file, and also a lot of enhancements and help. So, yeah.
And I think just important thing to mention is that on the pilot project, we really, the learning curve was very steep, and we understood how big of a task is to prepare the data. And then when we moved to the next implementations, it was actually agreed in the company that we have to be ready with data preparation on next sites before we start the project. Because otherwise it's going to consume all the resources you have on the project, because this task outweighs almost the rest. I mean, it's almost, outweighs the rest of the project. So
and then you can maybe ask how long time does it take to do the data. And now we are rolling out on the biggest site here, and they start for more than 1 year ago to put in data. So it's a huge task to do that. So don't underestimate that. That's a very, very key thing. So.
Yeah. So kind of looking at, ALK took a very meticulous and planned out approach. They went step by step, scope by scope, or site by site to roll this out. But John, what other ways have you seen some of our other customers embrace a global implementation? Are there other ways to do this?
Yeah, there's a lot of different permutations that you can take, and that we've seen at Blue Mountain. So, for example, we've had customers go live with 5 initial scopes at once, and everyone implements at the same time. We've seen others like ALK that use the benefit of a pilot site to take their time, go through the documentation, approve everything, get their processes in place, and then adding additional scopes after that is primed and ready and a lot easier throughout that project. But that's not to say that there's one right way to do this or a wrong way. We've had other customers that get an initial scope without any plans of a second one, and a few months later, hey, we're going to bring another scope on board. So it's hard to predict, for each customer. Every scenario is different, but I do think that at least one pilot site might be the best approach, just to get everything organized, understand the system. The more you know about the system just makes it that much easier to implement the project, and that takes time. Like they said, there's a learning curve there. So yeah, no wrong or right way to do it, but more preparation the better, in my opinion.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about what that scope add process looks like from our end, so people may know what to be prepared for?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll go with the approach of, ALK here, where they had an initial scope go live and then considered adding on afterwards. So if you're just doing what we consider the service as a scope addition or a scope add, we need to gather some requirements up front about what is unique, what parameters that are unique between scopes. what's your date format, what time zone is it, what do you want the scope to be called, what default workflows you want, how do you want your group matrix to exist in terms of rights, and any tree requirements like physical location structure. But those are really it in terms of what we need to go in and configure a new scope. So we add the new scope, do a subset of what we normally configure, because a lot of the settings are shared between scopes and already exist from that first scope. So if you are looking for a harmonized approach, that scope add is a pretty quick endeavor. It doesn't take as long as the initial configuration, of the pilot site. And then from there, it's really a matter of, do you have data? So, that's kind of the wild card there. Do you have spreadsheets? Is it paper that you have? Do you have another system? Are you coming from RAM R3? And all of those will affect the timeline, but eventually we work through the data process, or maybe there is no data, and immediately we can begin the end user training and go live.
So it's a little bit about what a global project is, how it happens, and what ALK did to kind of roll theirs out, and where they're at with it. So next we're going to go on to why harmonize. So many of you may be here looking at, should we allow other, locations to join our instance of RAM? Should we all come together? So just looking to kind of talk a little bit about some of the benefits there and things that you should consider when making that decision. So looking at global initiatives, does ALK have global initiatives for harmonization? And if so, can you talk about them?
Yes. First of all, of course we want to harmonize when it's beneficial. It's not always good to harmonize if there's a big variation between the sites. But for this, we're talking about for maintenance, calibration, and controlling a lot of things in the operation. It makes perfectly sense for us to do that. It's also when I started here I think I started here for 3 years ago. The sites didn't talk together, and now we have a global engineering management team that talks together, and then of course we want to harmonize where it's a good idea. So it's very good to harmonize, and it's also a lot of benefits afterwards. But it's also hard to do it because there's a tendency, I think it's for all companies, that all the local sites, there's a little a kingdom there, so they want to do it in their way. So, but it's not always the best way. It's a good thing to share the best practice if it's benefiting, and it is here. Also because we want to have a business continuity in this, and good support of the system, and also to increase the compliance level. So that's why we're doing it here. We also do it for some other systems in ALK, but we are on the start of a travel there, I would say. I think we have, all in all, I think we have 3 cloud solutions today in the company, and then we have a lot of own systems.
And I think a lot more of cloud is coming, of course,
Yes.
on the way.
Yes.
Yes. And of course, when it is a global system, then of course you do have super users. Maybe that's a little different topic, but then you do have a lot of super users across sites, and then suddenly those people, they can talk together because they are actually using exactly the same system with the same configuration, and actually discussion can happen or start across borders. How do you do it, and how do you do it, and could we find a better way to do it? So.
And then maybe you can also ask how to drive this harmonization and in the direction there. It's also a matter of that we are in the company do an IT strategy, and we are doing that each and every year. And of course, this rollout of CMMS is part of that strategy. So it also means that it's well anchored in the company.
And it's prioritized
prioritized,
yes.
So having that global structure and initiatives, you think, is really helping to get the support and show the support of your entire company to say this is important, would you say?
And yes, and it's also so that in fact the IT strategy is made across sites, so all sites in the end have to agree what is going to be the most important, because of course all sites have local IT projects that are needed and need to be implemented for some good reasons. So it is also, in the moment it's prioritized, then it is that everyone has agreed that this is going to be on top of the list to be implemented.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned this before, but to just get into a little bit more, can you talk about maybe the SOPs and how you've leveraged one set across all of your sites and how that's helped you?
Yes, it was, I think, I don't know, maybe there are 200 or 300 SOPs around the company about this. And we are down to use more or less one now. So that's a huge thing. We have made a global work instruction for how to use the system. And then we also, in that link to the, I don't know, is it 3,000 pages of work instructions that you can find on the Blue Mountain site. It's for those that wants to go a little step further, I think, but it's that's a good help to find there. So we have that's a tremendous reduction in subs and all that. Furthermore, it's called in English. Furthermore, if you go into the system, there's always a possibility to see in the system what is this about. There's a small text there, and that is very, very, very helpful. So we have a lot of not a lot of shared subs, but we have taken a lot of subs away. So.
And the discussion has also been, when we were starting the project, do we need to create? Do we need? It almost sounds like rewrite some of the wins from Blue Mountain so that they are our own and they are stored in our document management system. And we had a long discussion with Q, and in the end we have decided that it makes no sense, because first of all, an upgrade might come. It might affect 5 or 10 of the wins from Blue Mountain. That means we would have to do a detective job to go and find out what has changed in the documents, how it's impacting our documentation, and it would be a big maintenance task going forward. So we have in the end just agreed that we're going to refer to all the wins from Blue Mountain in this one document Carsten mentioned, and then just keep it like that, because they are available all on Blue Mountain portal or in a place where it's accessible by everyone. So I think it was a very tough decision, but it was a good decision.
Yeah. So looking at just anything else, so you had your global initiatives, to share processes, to share a system, but have you seen any unexpected outcomes or benefits because you've started and are underway on the harmonization process?
Yes, I think if I should mention one thing is that we named super users on each and every site from the very start, even if they didn't have a system. So when we did the rollout of the first site, we had the next site super user also attending the first site. And that was a very, very good thing to do that, because it was easier for the next one to implement. And then vice versa, the next site has the third site super user on there. So it was a good thing. And then we also have a super user group now. We have established, it has been there for more than 1.5 years, I think. And they are in fact doing the business. So if we have to optimize something or change something or do something, then we go around them. They have the fingers in the system, so and the business. So it was a really nice way to do that way. So. If I should mention one thing.
I think CMMS has kind of connected those super users, because before those people, I don't think they knew each other, they talk together, and now they have this common ground and something, that unites them. Actually, they are very much in their areas of expertise. So I think that has been this thing that was nice to see as an outcome.
And also another thing that maybe it's not so unexpected, but it was better than expected, I think. It's so much paper we have if we don't have a digital system. So, and now we don't have much paper, so it's so much, and it's easier to take up data and all that. So it's really that surprised us that we were able to do that better than we thought. So, yeah.
Nice. John, can you talk to us a little bit more about how can RAM help a global rollout see value? What are some other ways that maybe we didn't discuss here that would benefit some of the people listening?
Sure. So there are a lot of things natively in RAM that are geared towards this harmonization possibility. And, just to name a few, queries, charts, workspaces, having data in one environment with multiple scopes means that there are opportunities to then view that data all at once. This wasn't something that, natively through querying we couldn't do in our previous RAM version, R3. So there are a lot of opportunities with R4 to really take advantage of having all your data, having processes that are similar, having similar workflows and similar rights across multiple scopes, because, it was mentioned with the super users, it's a forum to talk about the platform and, discuss possible changes or things that are working well, and as a cohesive group drive that product in changes or just standardization, which I think is a really nice benefit that you get from that. Because otherwise, if you have different environments of RAM for every scope, I mean, there's really no reason to talk, and you're not going to get those valuable conversations that drive efficiency. So I think at a high level, there are a lot of things in RAM that really lend itself well to this harmonization and capabilities within R4 that we didn't have in our previous version of the software.
So just to kind of reiterate that in terms of why harmonize, every company has their own reasons, right? Maybe it's increasing ROI by streamlining the number of documents that you have to manage, reducing non-conformances, just getting everybody on one subscription is kind of a basic thing, but also streamlining compliance. If there's fewer SOPs that need to be managed, one validation package for one system rather than one for each site or location that you have, you're going to ensure better compliance there, as well as data sharing that John talked about. If you're in one platform, you can look at data and say, why is this site doing better than this site? And having that group that you talk to that meets every month to go through that stuff and say, why are we seeing these trends and metrics there, but not here? Can you help share, what you're doing there so we can all learn from you, is a really important reason to harmonize. So probably the most exciting part of this for me is to just get some tips, learnings, and recommendations from us to say, if you're thinking about this, what did Victoria and Karsten learn that they either would have done differently or that made this such a successful project? So we're going to jump into that now. We've kind of touched on a lot of these things before, but I think there's a lot more information there. So what's your biggest learning from the first site rollout? So you went with the pilot approach. You did one. We talked about that it was a long project on purpose, I might add. But what did you learn from that?
I think we will give the same answer. I think the biggest thing we learned was that how complex was the data part and how much attention we needed to pay to that. And that was the foundation for the success, because we didn't customize the system. So we didn't have to test that our customizing works and that, things work together, in a good way. It was actually all about the data, and it was not like easy peasy part of data. It was a thing that required a lot of smart people to put a lot of, brains together to make it work and find out, good way and understand it well. So I think that was the biggest learning from my side, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think the other learning is that if you have to roll it out on more sites, then be align that very much in the start, very, very much. Then it's much easier to implement it later, and you have a agreement on how to do it, and you can reuse so many things. So it's much more cheap to in hours and all that to implement it, and that makes sense.
And when we were doing this alignment, we had participants from each site. We had some QA people also from local sites, and then we had an engineering representative, 1 or 2 from each site as well. And so, because then those people were signing off on what we have agreed. Because of course, during the course of 3 years and even more, right, not all people remain in the company. Apparently someone is going to leave the company, right? But it was very important that we could go and point back to this, because when we went to another site, we have of course always met people who have not heard about this alignment that we have made, because not all the company has known about it. We thought everyone, knew about it, but of course there have been people we met that have never heard about it, and it was just so important to go back and say, and also explain, of course, why we have agreed on that and have a good explanation of why it was done like this.
What we also did was to get an endorsement from the top management, and that also helps a little when you roll it out. So.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think what you were just saying is that, not everybody was immediately on board with what, when you came to the sites, maybe they had, questions or concerns or like that. It wasn't all rainbows or butterflies, but how did you kind of work through those process types of issues? What could people do and take from your learnings there?
I think we adjusted a lot. We, as mentioned, we thought we planned very well, but it was inevitable. There was a lot of surprises on the way, and we have adjusted and rescheduled many times. So it was a lot, especially, in the pilot project, if we could find some workarounds, not to impact overall timelines, of course, we used that, but inevitably there were times when we had to, impact the go live date and just rescheduling. There has been a lot of that, and a lot of just learning, I think.
But if you see it in a holistic way, you can say the first site took 14 months. And we did from the start, we worked on generating the data. The next site rollout, in fact, also took the same time, because they started to do the data work before, but then they knew how to do it and all that. And then the implementation was approximately half a year. So it's in fact almost the same. So, but it was a little complex to do the data generation. At the same time, we had to find out how to do everything. So, and do all of those things. And then together with a 9 hours time difference from Denmark to West US, it was some workful evenings in Europe.
That's of course something to consider, and it might sound obvious, but in our case, we knew that site Postfalls, they were very eager to get the Blue Mountain system, and they really wanted to be the first one. And only after we have finished implementation, we thought it was actually, in fact, it's a factor on top of doing a pilot to do it during, I believe it was during Corona, with 9 hours time difference. So even you couldn't really travel. So.
But I would say the big learning here is when you do the first rollout, then do it with a less time difference. Because many other companies also have sites all around the world. So in the first site, do it close to where people are. And
so that you can also meet
Yeah.
physical meet, and because there's going to be a lot of things that need to be discussed and aligned, and much easier to do it face to face.
Yeah. And then I think you touched on this before, but this is something that I think would be useful for a lot of people. I think you mentioned you had people from whatever site just recently went live and you had them join the project team for the next one in line. Was that helpful?
Yes,
To
that
have
was
people
extremely.
kind of go, yeah.
It was very, very helpful, and especially the second site we implemented was the first time we implemented 2 sites at the time. So we had to have 2 sites running. One of the surprises we went through there was that in Europe you use comma for decimal separator, and in US you use Dutch, and the system was not built for that. So we had a small stop there because it didn't work, but that was something that we probably could have looked more into this. What's the difference on the site 1 and site 2? But on the other hand, when you have some people from site 2 helping site 1, then we maybe have found many other things. So I think in the end, it's much better and have a lot of good things with it.
Well, I know we're actually getting close to running out of time, so I want to make sure that our audience gets a chance to ask us some questions. So we'll turn it over there, and I'll remind the audience, if you have any questions, there's a question area in GoToWebinar, and you can type your question in there, and I will be reading them to the team here to answer. So looking at this, do you know approximately how many people or work hours were used for the initial load from Post Falls transition from FaciliWorks to Blue Mountain? They want to know how much time it took.
I would say it costed 2 full-time employees
During the course of the project.
So it's around 3,000, 4,000 hours.
Wow. Hopefully that helps. Casey's asking specifically, how long did it take to populate the data import sheet?
A lot.
You can say that you do this in steps. You have 3 environments. So the first environment is development, and in that one you don't need all. Then you do the validation, and in fact there you don't need them all too, because you can validate the system with the data you have. But the third one is production. There you need it. Every data has to be in place there. And one of our learnings here is also that Blue Mountain has some slot times for doing this. And you cannot just call Blue Mountain and ask them, can you do this tomorrow? You have to plan that a little. So what we have found out, one of our learnings are that the validation load, the middle load of this, we just stick to the plan where it is and the slot time, and then load the data we have. So you can say we have partial load there. When I say partial load, it's because when you do all the data, you also need to review it.
Yes.
And that review process is taking some time too.
Yes.
But we're doing that review process during the project. So maybe not all projects, all assets and data are reviewed. So that was when we found out that it was much easier, because the first time I remember we agreed on that in 3 weeks from now we do the load, and then we were not ready because it took some more time than we expected to.
It's just you are one of customers in line, so to say, in line for the service. And if we agreed 2 weeks ago to do tomorrow, and suddenly we're not ready, then we have to wait a little bit of time before again there is time available. And that's just something important to plan with. And it's, as Carsten says, better to stay fixed to that plan if possible, and maybe just load a little bit less data. Of course, when you go to production, you have to load it all. But if you're in other environments, you could vary it a bit.
I also want to add another thing because it's important that the collaboration is very, very good. When we do that between the PMO and the project managers at Blue Mountain. We have an excellent collaboration there, and it's very helpful, and we are trying to get it all done very, very well. So I would like to thank you for that.
Another question that came in for the ALK team as well is, how has this approach improved day-to-day operations or compliance across your locations?
It made it more robust, I would say, the whole process. We know that we are not running different systems, and we don't have Excel sheets that, who has access to them and how they are controlled and audit trailed. So I think it made the whole process much more robust and reliable.
Exactly.
And we have a setup where we do have a couple of system managers who are supporting, right, the users and super users on that part. So it just gives that and stability to the whole thing.
And it also makes it much, much easier. You know, when you have a production running, then you need to make a periodic review about your how your maintenance and how your it's a qualification. Okay, you have to look through so many binders back in time when you do this, maybe every second or third year. And what can you do now? You can just take the data out directly through the reports, or you can make some queries that are fitting you. So it's so much. But we haven't got that benefit yet because we haven't run 3 years yet. We have
Soon.
3 years. So that's increase also the compliance level. Also, that you have the system can make NCs if you are out of time for calibration or doing something wrong, and you are you can read what people are writing also. So there's a lot of good compliance things in this.
A lot of visibility.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The last thing I would also like to say is it's also some work to take care of the system that we're using for that. And that's very easy because then that is Blue Mountain thing that take care of that. So that's a good thing with the cloud solution for us.
We're only responsible. I mean, we are responsible, of course, for master data quality, but yes, we're not doing any. We're not doing the releases. Or anything like that. Mm-hmm.
And Blue Mountain are not doing so much else than this CMMS. So that's also key for us that we have a company that really are robust in that way. So and engaged in this way.
So next question is how many instances of BMRAM are you running, and are there any sites sharing the same instance? So I don't think we specifically mentioned this, but if you want to kind of talk about your database and how many instances you actually have.
And in the database, we have around, what should I say? We have around.
And Gini, instances, is that it's not the same as
assets? You can say assets. How many assets you have in the system? Yes. That's what you're asking about. I think we have around.
I think what they're asking is everybody in the same instance of Blue Mountain RAM? All 6 sites or 4 sites out of 6 sites so far. Everybody's in the same. When you log in, you're logging into the same URL, but you just have a different scope there.
Yes.
We have different scope, and if you log in on site A, then you only see site A for most of the things. there are some common things in the Blue Mountain that goes on crossover. But yeah.
So multiple locations in one instance, if that answers your question.
So you have some roles in the system from the, you can request something up to the, you can say the super user can do the most things. But you have to get permission to be on a scope on a site. But of course you can get access to all the sites if the system administrators are doing that, but it's not normal.
Yep. Do one more round. I think we've hit up all the questions that were asked. If anybody else has any questions, please feel free to type them in the question panel of the chat. Or if you want us to follow up with something, maybe not read it out loud to everybody, just mention that there, or post it to myself privately in the chat and we can get back to you. So I'll give everybody a couple more seconds for questions. I don't think I see anything coming in. And while we do that, I'll remind everybody here that's attending, something that I'm really excited about is the Blue Mountain Summit. It's a chance for us, Blue Mountain employees, to get to meet with our customers. This year it's going to be in Durham, North Carolina. So not in State College this year, but maybe a little bit easier for folks to travel to. So if you haven't registered yet and you're interested, I highly recommend it. It's a really good opportunity to meet peers and learn from people who are doing the same jobs you're doing. I know Karsten and Victoria aren't able to attend this year, but there's other people like them that can offer advice about what they were doing. And just a really good chance to have those conversations with others. So recommend that. And I don't think I see any questions. So a little bit about what's next. Just keep an eye out for an email from the Blue Mountain team, and it'll give you instructions if you'd like to download this presentation, share it with maybe some of your coworkers or whatnot. We'll be sending that out soon. So I want to take a moment, thank everybody for attending. Thank you, John, Victoria, and Karsten as well for answering my questions today, and just informing people about your experiences in your project that I believe you've executed flawlessly. So thank you all, and we'll see you guys next time.